Kvalitná architektúra sa nezaobíde bez kvalitného stavebného materiálu. Všetko pre vašu stavbu a tento podcast vám prináša Wienerberger.
Welcome everybody. You are listening to podcast about architecture called How I Met My Architect. You can follow this podcast also on Instagram. Usually this podcast is in Slovak language, but right now I'm in Barcelona for 2 months, and this is a really good opportunity to record some episode with some Spanish architect. So I'm very happy that today I can talk very friendly with José Toral from studio Peris+Toral. Hi, José.
Hi.
Let me introduce you like very, very shortly, and you will introduce you and your studio to us. But José is one of the partners of architectural studio based in Barcelona called Peris+Toral. And I'm not afraid to say that it's a really good architectural studio, since the people can know you because you were among the finalists of Mies van der Rohe Prize award last year, 2022. So it's a really good achievement, and I'm sure that you can describe it a little bit more to the detail. So let's start very friendly and very smoothly with describing your studio.
So we are two partners, Marta and Jose. And we mainly do housing, social housing. It's the most part of the projects we are working on are about this. And we are worried of thinking of new ways of inhabiting or living, and also new ways of building. So construction and inhabiting are like the main subjects that we are worried in the office.
Why are you still finding the new types of living or redefining the living?
Okay, no, because maybe in the last 30, 40 years, there has been many changes in society, the digitalization, all internet, computers, now the smartphones, the artificial intelligence. So everything around us has changed so much, and our housing hasn't changed. So we think the ways of doing housing we're used to, they don't fit with the reality of the news of our societies. Now we have different kinds of families. It's not only the nuclear family with parents and sons, so new ways of sharing with people. So we think that this has to be checked again. Maybe when I was young, the television was the center of the living room, but now nobody watches TV. This way of relating with the media, it's more individual ways of doing it, and so everything has changed. Only it goes by generation. Maybe my generation still watch TV, but the younger generations, they don't watch TV. They don't understand sharing the space to watch a movie. They prefer to do it at their own devices. This central piece of the living room is something that we think is changing. When we do competitions, we don't draw the sofa in front of the TV, so we draw 2 sofas, one in front of the other, to talk, because for us this is the new. We think in future the living room will be more like this. It's not anymore watching a common device. This also changes the role of the kitchen. The kitchen for us it's a place for meeting. The new place for meeting in the house will be the kitchen, and the individual rooms have to be bigger because of these individual ways of behaving of the society. So we think you need to give more space to the individual places, to the private places, and less to these common areas in the house. We think we try to do houses that they don't have any hierarchy So we like this idea of making equal rooms that shows that, it gives you this non-hierarchy house, but also gives you some flexibility, because when the space measures the same, you can interchange them and you can choose which ones of the rooms you keep. With no hierarchy, what happens is that it hasn't to be bigger the room for the parents than the room for the sons, but even if you're sharing a house with some friends, they all measure the same. So it's this equalitarian space that, for us, it has more to do with our new society. We think that porosity, making rooms with more than one door so that you can move around them easily, will be part of the future of these kinds of houses, but maybe right now the society is not ready yet.
All of these principles we can see in your Cornella house project, but we will talk about it a little bit later. Let me ask you that, for example, the COVID situation, did you analyze something what will change for us, especially for the requirements of living when we were locked like in our houses that time?
We think that there are some very important things to have some exterior space in your house. It's very important. When we were locked down, it was very useful to have the opportunity to go to the exterior in the interior of the house. So this is something that I think now everybody understands, that all the houses have to have these balconies of these terraces. And this is something that for us is very important, to have these spaces that also will have to have some environmental behavior, that it will help, to reduce the demand of the building, of the house, so being more energetic, better behavior. But for us, it is something that has been very important. Also, again, this idea of making bigger rooms, that when your rooms are bigger, you can do these other activities that we were needed to do. And finally, for us, this is important to have some shared spaces in the community, that the building, that your house doesn't have to be only your dwelling, it has to be part with the building you are in, and, with the community, and you can move around there. So you have common terraces, you have common spaces. For us, this is something that we are really sure that would have helped a lot in the COVID situation.
So when you are talking about the community living, does it work very well here in Barcelona or in general in Spain? Because you can be living in this type of house, but not everybody wants to be part of the community, to be active in this community. How does it work here?
It depends of the place, but there are two things that you can win with working with the shared spaces. One is when you share, you have some social benefit, that means that you relate with the neighbors. You say maybe somebody doesn't want that, but this is not only the only reason why it's good to share. You can share rooms for guests. Maybe in a building we can do some room for having guests. So that doesn't mean that you need to have an extra room in your house. So maybe in the building you have 4 or 5 rooms for guests, and that doesn't mean that you share them together, but you can ask for, I need these 2 weeks, and you can enlarge your home as you need it. That doesn't mean that there is not this social behavior, you will keep it for yourself, but only for some time, Sharing is a way of having more with less resources, If we have a common kitchen, that means that maybe we don't need to have 80 ovens in all the houses. They can have problems, you have to repair them, but you can have maybe 5 shared ovens in some spaces, and if you want to make a very big cook, you go there, and maybe are better ovens, and they are, more professional ones, And the same with the laundry, there are many things that we are doing in an individual way, but if we share the machines, it will be more optimal, and we will need less space in the interior space, and there are things that we don't use during all the day. So these kinds of things, if we share them, it is better. Having a common place for our kids to play, for the kids of the community, having a very big room, it needs less space than having a room for playing in each one of the houses. So this is not only social, it's very economical, it's very... for us, developing this idea of sharing in different scales, that sharing doesn't mean to live in a community, it's only sharing things, maybe, having a bibliothèque. Everybody has thousands of books in their shelves that they never look at them. But maybe we can bring all of them to a part of a community, and, everybody can use the books of the others, so you will need less resources, and that doesn't mean that to have dinner with the community. It's like this idea of sharing that for us has a potential of needing less resources and and enlarging your home.
And what about taking care of those spaces? Because sometimes happens when something doesn't belong to you, it means that you are not going to take care of those stuff because it doesn't.
This is something we have to learn to do. But maybe it's something that we can share the cost of the cleaning or maintenance. I'm sure we have to. We think that we have to learn how to share. That we are not good at this, but it's the future. And understanding that you can share in different scales. That it's not necessary that you share everything with everyone. Different scales of sharing. Maybe there are some things that you only share with the other dwellings in the same plan, and things that you share with all the community, and things that you share with the neighborhood. In some way, it's something that we are doing already. With the city. There are some spaces. You go to the gym. It's a shared space gym.
Especially here when Barcelona is so dense city, you need to share the public space, and you need to learn that. And how do you live? Do you live in this community type of space?
We have tried to, but we couldn't make it because it's very difficult to find a project like this in Barcelona. And in some moment we tried to do a project ourselves, but it was not able finally. So it's something that we'd have loved to do, to have the opportunity to try one of these communities.
You and your studio, you are also very focused on materiality. And when we were talking to each other before, very informal, you said a really nice sentence that form follows material, not material follows form. So could you describe this approach for us?
In the last years, maybe in the last 10, 15 years, we've working, every project has been more developing with this idea of using the material to shape the space, Understanding the properties of different materials is something that for us it's very important. So we have understand that we don't have to look for the aesthetics, that the aesthetics come from this idea of the properties. So we like to analyze, the hygroscopicity, the density, the different behaviors of the materials, how it works structurally. And in the last projects, it has been a very key point for developing all the spaces, So depending of the material, the kinds of space we're doing are different. And, now we have, some more industrialization projects like Cornella with the timber, but and that they are like really fast, dry construction. But in the other hand, sometimes when we work in the islands, in the Balearic Islands, we have done 2 projects, one in Ibiza and one in Cervera. We do more wet construction with loading walls and using the massive, the inertia, and trying to use these properties in order to fight against the very hot summers we have there. And one of these projects is made with raw earth blocks and understanding which has to be how this materiality is working. And we are very sure that this is understanding construction is part of the aesthetics, and understanding that following the form of the construction of the material can shape you the space. No, it's something that helps us a lot to take the decisions in the projects.
And you are also teaching on university. So what do you teach your students that when they will be the future architects, what they should do? What do you teach them?
Okay. Now, for me, teaching architecture, I always say that being an architect is being a person that has to take many decisions. So all I want to do is teach them some criteria of how to take these decisions. For me, it's what I teach as an architect. I teach them how to make decisions. So they have to understand that some of the drawings we don't do them for building. I've never seen nobody using the section to build anything. I say to them that all they have to know is like understanding. So when we do these analyzings of the city and having these coherence, it's in order to have this narrative that can help you to make many other decisions. So this idea of the coherence of the project is only to be able to make decisions. So when an architect we are in the construction site, and there is a problem, everybody looks at the architect. What do we do now? You have to be able to to make many decisions. For me, being an architect is taking many, many, many decisions, and you have to have some ways of taking these decisions that you're sure that you're not wrong. Because otherwise, you could have these problems of not being sure that if your decision was not the better one. And, this is like a global idea. But what I teach, I am in a studio that we talk about landscape and urban space. And it's a very interesting. I'm very happy doing this, and we're talking about, all the understanding the city from the geography and the climate more than from this culture, urbanism that we live on. So for us, the first layer is understanding that there is a geographical approach with a topography, with some water resources, rivers, and understanding this also is related with the climate. Understand that this is the basis to understand the city, understand where we are at. So this is like the natural layer, and then we have the artificial layer. We can analyze it, like Kevin Lynch told us about, the limits, the highlights, the routes, the neighborhoods. For me, it's very interesting that all the other decisions, you can understand them better if you understand very well the natural layer we are working at. You understand that there is a slope and that's what's happening, So I try to teach them to understand that everything's coming from this natural layer. The natural layer is the one that we shouldn't change, and the artificial one is the one that we can change.
This sounds really contextual. So do you teach also your student that they should think about the context at the first, or contextual environment? Because some of the architects, they are not that contextual, for example.
But maybe I come from the school of Barcelona, and in this school, urbanism is very important in Barcelona, and being contextual is something that I cannot go away from there. Maybe all the architects we are in Europe, it's difficult not to be contextual. We work in a context that has very high density, and and you're in some way you have to understand that you're a piece of a bigger thing in order to generate this idea of the city. So for me, it's very important to understand that everything has to be contextual, but which is the context we choose? That for me, the important thing is to choose, understanding the geography and the climate as the first context. And then, we can look at the immediate context. But it's not the same if it rains a lot. It's when you do the coverings, maybe it's not the same of a place of a Mediterranean climate that we have here. Maybe you have snow, you need to put slopes in the coverings. What I like to show them is that many of the cultural things we've done, they come from this climate and geography thing. So just by understanding that the basis is the geography and the climate, you can reach new solutions, because you have to understand what are you answering at. Now we have new technologies, we have new situations that we can do it a better way than it has been done since now. So I do understand that every moment has its technology, and because of this, things change a lot.
So now we have a really nice warm-up behind us, and let's move forward to the projects. Let's move forward to, let me say, the pilot project. And that's something what you have started to talk about at the beginning. We are talking about Cornella social housing. And if you don't know this project, feel free to go to the webpage of Peris+Toral Architecture Studio, or you can go to the Instagram, or you can just Google this project. So let's talk about it a little bit more detailed. Let's talk about the space concept of this project, which is a little bit unusual.
We couldn't decide the form of the building. There was a planning regulation that they were very strict, so it has to measure. The plot was like 50 meters by 40 meters, and there you have to have this patio of 25 by 15. So, at some moment, we were very, very close not to do the competition because we thought we couldn't do anything for the city, so maybe it was not useful to do it. But in summer, we decided to begin from the interior and having this conceptual approach of not having, the unit of aggregation usually is the drawing. So you begin a project, they tell you have to do that many drawings, and you draw a drawing and you copy it. So your unit of thinking usually is the unit of the family. But we thought, what happened if we change this scale of the unit, and instead of having a drawing as a unit, we do a room as the unit. So we thought of having this unique size of room, a square room, around as a pattern, as a matrix around all the plan. But for us, that was very interesting, and as I said, it's very stimulating, this idea of if all the rooms measure the same, there is no hierarchy in the house. You can nobody no user can have a bigger room than other. So this equality for us is something that can answer many of the things of our society right now. And also, as I said before, this also gives you some flexibility, because as if they all measure the same, we can interchange them easily. So you have some flexibility without touching the walls, No, this idea can work always, which has to be the size of a room in order to this to happen. So in Spain, a single room has to measure minimum 6 square meters, double room 8, and the main room 10.
In Slovakia, we have 8 meters square for the minimum.
What about 10? But 10 is not good for the living. It's very small. So we look at many of the reference and we understood, because as to make them all equal, you have to do some tricky things. So we took off the dining room from the living and we added to the kitchen in order to make more equal space. So the living, it's a room, and dining and kitchen is another room. So in some way, we try to play with the different programs in order to understand which parts of the program can go together. And, bathroom and laundry, they are together, and some small distribution space. So, but, we knew, because Marta, my partner, she made a PhD about the Japanese house, and there was this room that it's called the 8 tatami room. It's a very beautiful thing, because in Japan they don't do as we do in Occident, call the rooms by their use. Here we say dining, bedroom, living room. So the way we name them is the way we use them. But as they reprogram the use of the space during the day, that doesn't make sense to call a place a bedroom if at night, if during the day it's a living room. So they do change the uses to have this flexibility that for us is very important. So they call the rooms by their size. And this size is also related to the human scale. So one tatami, it's 90 by 1 meter 80. It's a person light in the floor. So an 8 tatami room, it's a room that has these 8 persons easily light in that floor. And it's measuring 360 by 360. And it is more or less this 13 square meters. So we took this as the basis of the project. And, another important thing is that in the Japanese house, the doors that connect the rooms are not 80 centimeters. They are movable, they are sliding doors, but they are more or less 1 meter and a half, 1 meter 60, 1 meter 80, So you have these sliding doors. And you have more than 2 doors by space. So you have this idea of the porosity that, even though you work with a small scale space that it's 30 square meters, by using these sliding doors, these big openings, you can add one space to the other. So your perception is that it's the same space. You have this idea of the enfilade of rooms, so you don't feel in a very small space. So we took this as the basis of the project, and we found out very funny things. There's a version of the kitchen of Frankfurt of Grete Lisowski that it's measuring 350 by 360. And La Petite Cabanon of Le Corbusier was measuring 366 by 366. So it was funny because we had the more flexible room, the more technical room, and the room of thinking of Le Corbusier all fitting in our matrix. And it works, And it was even important that not only the private spaces uses these units, also the sharing spaces, the room where you enter to the different entries, it fits in this module. The staircase also fits inside the module. And, there is these balconies around. There are two corridors. There's one in the courtyard and the other one in the facade, that they are working like Dengawa on the Japanese house. So it's nice because to many of the drawings, you enter through a terrace. And they have two terraces, one for the entrance and another facing the street.
But that also sounds that you were working and you were finding and analyzing those boundaries between public space, shared space, private space. So how does it work in this project?
We are very used to work with this concept of understanding these boundaries between but we do like a lot this idea of enlarging the house, because in this case instead of going up to each one of the cores directly from the street, we decided we put a porch, and then all the neighbors, they enter through the patio. So this is a first shared space that they share the entrance. And it's nice because the other way around, there will be 4 communities. But now we have one community, and you meet with the different people that are living in different cores, because you share this first door, and that gives you this identity of the community. And it's working very well, because when you share a space that everybody crosses every day, it always works. It's if there is a paper in the floor, somebody will pick up. So it works very well. I'm sure this way of sharing, we've done it many times, and it works always. So, and it also has some environmental behavior, because there is some plants, and the air is entering through the ports and going through, so there's a movement of the air and generates some microclimate that helps to the houses that go to there. For us, the nice thing is understanding that your home begins when you are in the porch, and then when you go to this gate and you're at the patio. And this is part of your home that is shared, not with, when you're in the porch, you share it with all the city. But you go to the patio, you are only expecting to meet these 240 people, you said, And then when you go to your core, you're only expecting to meet 1/4 of this, 60. And then when you go to your floor plan, you're only expected to meet 8, 10, I think is that we have to learn a lot of how sharing in different scales changes our perception, or which is the more comfortable way to do it.
And when we are talking about this project, that the space concept, as you told us, is like solid grid with rooms the same size. Please tell us something about the construction system, because I think this is supposed to have like some specific one.
This measurement of 360 was very good for timber construction. So we knew from the beginning that timber was a good option to do the structure of the building. So it was not easy, because we had a very low budget. So we couldn't have more money, because we wanted to do it with timber, but we have to manage to understand very well, how the wood structure is working, and we live in the rooms. We have the ceiling, we see the structure exposed, so that's good, because it helps us in order to use the timber as to regulate the humidity of the space. That is because here we are next to the sea, and we have a very high humidity, many times around 80%, and the ideal humidity is around between 50 and 60. So it's too high in order to have this comfort. So one of the ways is using materials that are able to absorb this excess of water. So that's what water is doing very well in Cornella. You have all the ceiling with the exposed wood that, helps you to regulate the humidity to these levels of around 56%. And we did the same in Ibiza with the Rohe Earth. The earth is even more better with this idea of regulating humidity. And we did it very similar also in Son Cervera in Mallorca with limestone and lime plaster. So we use the limestone mainly in the facade to do the loading walls of the facade, but the bearing walls in the interior are ceramic, and the ceramic is not able to do this regulation of the humidity. So then we plaster it with 1.5 centimeters of lime plaster. And that, when you are there, you understand that it's working with this concept of absorbing the excess of the humidity in summer mainly.
Like in terms of Cornella housing, we are talking about a wooden construction. Yeah. And is the wooden construction inside open? Or is there also some plaster or cardboard?
In order to solve, the most difficult part of building with wood is when you're doing social collective housing, it's the sound isolation between neighbors. So in many places we use the covering with plasterboards in order to be able to solve some acoustic bridges, and so we only let the ceilings exposed. What happens is that the ceiling absorbs part of the excess of humidity of the air.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I read some article that this building is one of the biggest wooden construction in housing. Is it true?
It is. There's like some funny thing that sometimes we here in Spain we feel more like being in the north of Africa than in the south of Europe. So we thought we were doing what they were doing in Europe. We wanted to do as they do they use wood to construct in Europe. We wanted to understand. But it's funny because at the end we realized that they were not doing like these big scale housing buildings in Europe. And it was like funny because we thought we were trying to do what the others were doing, but in fact, nobody had done it at that scale before. It was like some kind of surprise that we found out maybe at the end.
It's great that there were no regulation which will stop you.
Well, there are many regulations. We are in the European community and we share the 85% of the regulations about, fire resistance are the same, all the sound proofs, So there are many regulations, but maybe it was more or inconscience.
Because, for example, in my country, in Slovakia, we have very strict fire regulations, and we are allowed to build a building with the fire height 12 meters. So if you will have like a 7-8 story building, and you will say let's make it from wood, you just cannot.
Well, regulations, they don't give you solutions. They give you what you have to reach. For me, if a regulation tells you you cannot do this solution, it's not the best way. You have to say, okay, as we have here, if you have this height of evacuation, your fire resistance, it's 90 minutes or 120 minutes. So you have to manage to do it with the material, whatever you have. Saying that by doing this solution, you will solve it or you will not solve it, it's not the best way of the regulation works. So it's not giving you solutions. No, I think regulation doesn't have to give you solutions. Architects, we are there for finding these kinds of solutions. And what I have to ask you is what do we have to? Which are the requirements we have there? So we have to last this time. It has to not drop. No, I don't know. BFs. The behavior of the fire. That they give you, it's a BS1, D0, or these kinds of things. So just telling you which are the requirements. Sometimes with these requirements, you understand that it's more difficult to do it with good and you don't do it. But saying that you cannot do that with good, it's limiting all the opportunity of developing the industry of something.
When we were talking about the wooden architecture and wooden projects, I'm sure it's connected with a very sustainable approach. So please tell us, what does it mean, sustainable architecture for you?
Okay, for me, to be sustainable has to be environmentally sustainable, but not only that, also economically and socially. So for us, it's very important to understand these 3 points. And not everything that it's environmental, it's also economic, only a small part of it. That's what we call the viable part, There are some things that are not viable. So even though they could be environmental, they are not economically sustainable. Also, we have something that it's environmental, and also a few part of the environmental part is also social. And this is what we call bearable. And not all the economic things are social, and only a small part, that's what we call equitable. So only when something is viable, bearable, and equitable, it becomes to be sustainable.
Let me ask you the last important question, and after that we will move to the rubric at the end. We were talking about the social housing projects, and that's, let me say, the main topic for you and your studio. But what does it mean, social housing, in your conditions? Because it can mean that it could be just a shelter on your head, or it can mean something totally different. So please tell us, what does it mean, social housing here?
In our context, social housing is money that comes from the community in order to give shelter to some part of the community that they don't have enough resources. And we ask with this money, we think we have to invert it very well. So if we invert this money only to do a shelter, then only a few people will have the benefits of this money. So we understand that we have to ask the public entities in order to lead the way of how we have to do to be sustainable. We have to we have to invert this money also in order to understand how we have to build in order to be sustainable in the future. Maybe it costs a bit more, but we can have a benefit for all because we can lead a change. They can be the leaders of a change in order that, with Cornella, with the wooden structure, there are many private investors that have come to understand how to build with wood. So this is a very important part because maybe now, with the money we inverted in this building, we can change. We can give some solutions that we can change the way we're doing things in the city. Or we like this kind of approach that social housing have this exemplarity of everything. Well, the project we've done in Ibiza, it has no active system, not because they don't need it, So we can fight against the poorness, the energetic poorness, So there are people that are entering to the houses that they don't have resources. They won't need to pay for the energy to heat or to cool because, we have thought of these kinds of systems of winter gardens, atriums, and these ideas of how we do the ventilations in order not to need any active system. So this is good for the society and it's good for the user, and it shows a way of needing less resources, and it's like a prototype that can be used in new projects. So for us, this is the way social housing has to work. It's not only providing a shelter. It's also leading a way, because it's the best way to invert this money, because if our common money doesn't invert it to this, the private one will never do this investigation. They will never thought of how to improve. They are only worried about making the maximum profit. So we ask the common money, the social money, also to give this research in order to know how we have to do it in the future. I think we have to work on how to improve things. Every project has to be a small improvement from the previous one, and at the end, maybe we will begin doing a bit better things.
Okay, Jose, let's move on to the rubric which I ask all of my guests. So the question number 1 is, what is your the most favorite failure?
I have many failures, but I'll explain you a funny one, that I have dyslexia. No? So reading for me had been like a nightmare during all my studies. I always thought I don't know how to read, and I have tried many years to read. And I have a daughter. We went to the psychologist and she made some tests, and the answer was she's also dyslexic. And then I asked the doctor, well, which is the solution? No? What can we do for my daughter not to have the same problems I had? And the answer she gave me was like really surprising to me. She told me there's no solution, but don't worry, because dyslexia is a problem of the codification. So you're not good as the codification, these symbols that we call letters, and you mix them up, and you spend too much energy by doing this decodification that you don't pay attention to the meaning. So this is what happens to you, but don't worry, in our world, there are many other ways of communicating rather than the writing way. So you have to understand that. And it was fine for me, because then I begin to read audiobooks and understanding that I don't have to try to read again and watching videos. And, and for me it was like a discovering of a new world. Now I read with the audiobooks more than 15 books through a year. And, and it's very interesting. I don't know.
What is your worst personal ability which you don't like the most?
Reading. No. I'm very on pensions. I don't have the... Maybe I could say that, but I'm not worried about that. Some way I think like it's very important to understand yourself. And with that, you just have to be consequence of where they can expect from you. So I think a lot of my things, and I don't pay attention of other things, and these kinds of things happen. But I'm not worried. For me, it's not a big problem. I get late to the places, but no, it's part of
life.
Yeah.
What is your best personal character?
I have the ability of convince people to many things. In some way, solving problems. Understanding a situation and being able to solve the different problems. It's my best ability. Just to understand, to know which is the limit in each moment of the situation. Yeah. This is like the best thing I have.
House or flat?
Flat.
Why?
No, because this idea of enlarging the home, of sharing, of this social thing, that totally, no, it's more sustainable. It's it's better for your family. It is, but we have to improve it.
What is your favorite food?
I do like the foods that we do for sharing. Like here we have the paella. No, you never do a paella for one person, so you're thinking of sharing. Yeah, or a barbecue. These kinds of when you relate the dining space, or the dinner time with the social time. For me, it's the best dinners are the social ones. So for me, it's important this relation between dining and having social play. So this idea of sharing, it's important in the dining. For eating, I like many things, but for me, the best is when we have the social with the friends, and it's not only the food, it's the food and the moment. It's important to have these kinds of food. I think every culture has some foods that are thought for the community, that you never do it for your own.
Okay, it's really nice that you have this sharing mood also in the food and architecture, so it's really consistent. But for now, let me ask you about the candy question. We have a really typical candies in Slovakia called Kávenky and Kakaové rezy. We grew up with them, and you had the opportunity to taste them before our podcast. So Jose, please tell us, which one do you prefer, Kávenky or Kakaové rezy?
As I told you before, now I'm sure I prefer Kávenky, but when I tasted the Kakaové
rezy, yeah,
I thought that when I was a kid, I would have chosen that. So it's some moment, there are like some reminds when you eat things, and so, but at our actual moment, I will choose Kávenky.
Okay, but it's because of the taste of coffee, or it's like some other feeling?
I do like this taste of coffee, but I'm more comfortable with this flavor now. But I'm not sure if it's only the coffee, but it's a good candy.
And finally, we are moving to the end. So let me ask you the final question from the rubric. And I'm sure that you know that we architects, we like to wear black clothes. So why do you think that architects wear black?
It's because we have to make many decisions, and not making that one, it's good. So it's a less, they're not choosing the colors, not being worried about. So, there's like, we've heard many things that like Obama or Steve Jobs, they always wear the same clothing and they have the sequel because they have to make that many decisions that they don't want to think about that also every morning. So maybe for me, it's kind of this thing that, as a professor, we have to make too many decisions. Choosing the color of the clothing, it's not one that we will take. So we keep this energy for the rest things, the rest part of the decision we have to do to take in the rest of the day.
Okay, Jose, we are at the end. So let me thank you very much that you find your time for me, and we could have this opportunity to record the podcast, to describe your studio, and to talk a little bit more about the Spanish architecture. So thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you, Peter.
Kvalitná architektúra sa nezaobíde bez kvalitného stavebného materiálu. Všetko pre vašu stavbu a tento podcast vám prináša Wienerberger.